Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you both doing?
Very well. Boiling.
It's hot.
Absolutely boiling.
Yes.
Are we finally seeing the global boiling, or is it just summer? We've had 3 days of this now in Wales, so there must be something wrong.
I think this is summer, so let's not complain. Let's enjoy it because it's going to be gone by weekend.
Yeah, well, it's going tonight for us. Unfortunately, it always pulls a shift early on in Wales.
If it's a full 3 days of dryness up in Manchester, then you'll be having water pipe restrictions soon.
We probably will.
Yeah. So, Nick, we originally wanted to speak to you because obviously what was going on up in Manchester Airport. It was interesting how that story did develop. And what I wanted to speak with you about is how there seemed to be blatant lies coming out from the police when they were saying things like there wasn't enough evidence to hold these men. And then all of a sudden evidence came out and it showed the one particularly in a blue tracksuit hoodie absolutely hammering lumps out of 3 coppers and making very little work of them as well. So there was evidence. So what's going on in that situation? Where are we at the moment with that? And what's your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, well, first of all, the only evidence you need to make charges against somebody is a word of a police officer.
Yeah.
To make your initial charges, that's all the evidence you need. So that was a load of rubbish. The Manchester Airport thing was a fiasco from beginning to end on many, many levels. What really happened was Greater Manchester Police, again, the senior top brass, the Chief Constable, Andy Burnham, all went, oh crap, we've got a white officer kicking a brown man on the floor. We're going to be called racist, there could be riots, there could be trouble. We need to quell this straight away, and they were terrified. They had no backbone, and they were quite willing to throw the officer under the bus. You could tell that straight away because those guys weren't charged to begin with, and the police let it be known that the officer is now suspended and is potentially looking at a criminal investigation. Yeah. They were throwing the officer under the bus.
Absolutely.
What he should have said, Nick, as a senior officer, he should have said, the officer that you refer to has been suspended, and I'm not allowed to comment, or I don't want to comment because I don't want to prejudice the case.
Well, it's an open investigation.
That's it. It's a very neutral statement at the worst. What he could have said, which is what the old Chief Constable of the Royal Ulster Constabulary would have said, is that we haven't got the full facts, and until we have the full facts, I'm standing with my officer.
Exactly. I'll go one step further. He shouldn't have even been suspended.
No.
Yeah,
he should have been taken off frontline duties, just in case it turns out he's a nutcase. So he should have been taken off frontline duties while they did the initial investigation. But the fact they suspended him made everybody think straight away, he's guilty.
Yeah.
So it was the wrong thing to do. And then when the second video came out, that changed everything across the country. Then when everybody saw what went on, that changed everything. It changed the police's stance, Andy Burnham's stance, and everybody realised that those 2 men were violent criminals. That's what those men were thugs, violent thugs.
Yeah.
They battered 2 officers, 2 female police officers, broke one of their noses, had to be tased on the floor. And that male officer then, don't forget, he's now looking at 2 incapacitated female officers. There's an argument about we have too many female frontline officers anyway. Yeah. But he's looking at them going, they're now out the game, basically. We've got one on the floor and there's a violent man stood in front of me. If the man on the floor now gets up after he's been tased, I'm done for here because he's committed violence. So I've got to make sure he's incapacitated a little bit longer so my colleagues can jump on him and handcuff him because I've got to deal with this guy. So he decided, and I think rightly so, I'm going to kick him in the face and I'm going to stamp on his head. That might give my colleagues 5 more seconds to get on him and cuff him because I've got to deal with this violent nutcase now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and just to say on that,
he received five blows to the head as well.
Yeah, and to be a firearms officer, you would have had to go through, I would imagine, some sort of mental health training, and tests. So, and you would do that, and that would be the evidence then for the senior ranking officers to say, I have faith in my officer that they acted accordingly, and that's what I think. Now, again, you said, the kick in the head. This is in an airport. There's stuff just gone on the day before, which with the British Army officer stabbed up. So, you said about interference. You run in, you're hearing limited what's going on. You're hearing officers down. You hear that it's, a Muslim, for example, and you run and you see what's going on, and it's chaos. So they've got to act instinctively, and they're trained to do that. So for pressure of upsetting a few people to suspend him is such a betrayal of that officer. If I was him, I would be, and any of his pals, I'd be handing him my guns and saying, "Up yours, get someone else to do it."
Yeah. But Nick, that flight, the Pakistani flights, the Saudi flights, they're always, how can I put it, on higher alert in that airport when those flights come in. And what I've understood is that the woman who was seen still picturing and getting in the road, she had caused a problem on an airline in. And then when she got to the baggage area, she decided to carry it on, point out the person that she had the argument with to her two sons, who then accosted him.
Yeah.
So again, with limited information, you've got trouble on an airline. It's from one of the flights that are a heightened alert, and the two officers are down. I'm sorry, I would have probably done more than just kick him in.
Well, and that's what I mean. It's quite reserved because the officer it could have, and potentially within his right to, because you've got, the Manchester Arena bombing where that could have been prevented if the security guard had the balls to ask him what is in the bag, mate. Yeah. But he didn't. And you look then at what's happened more recently with the stabbings of those multiple children. You can't. It's not worth the risk. What ifs? You can't take that chance because we've seen what happens when you take that chance. And there was the bomb that went off in Manchester.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think if you punch an officer, first of all, I think the game changes.
Absolutely.
The rules of engagement change, especially if you punch an armed officer. Are you going through his gun? What happens if you get hold of his gun? The rules change.
They absolutely do, Nick, and that's what he did. He ran up from behind him, punched him in the head, and then went for him. Now, somebody can say that was to get him on the chest. Somebody can say, I say it was going for his gun because he was right-handed, and he went for the right hand. I'm sorry, this is, and like you say, you're quite right. Andy Burnham and the police chief constable, Doctor, whatever his name is, Doolittle, has probably impugned that good officer's name.
Mm. So where are we with that now then? Have these lads been charged? Have they now been charged?
Since the horrendous incident in Southport, this has now disappeared off the news. I wouldn't even know.
I think they have been charged and they've been bailed.
Yeah.
But they were charged and bailed, and they've assaulted 3 police officers and tried to snatch a gun.
Yeah,
we did balls all, and we were locked up for 37 hours.
Yeah, houses raided the lot.
you know,
and this is part of the 2-tier policing system. That we can do what we want unless it's against the minority community of any description. In which case, we're terrified of upsetting a minority community. There may be the gay community, the Muslim community, the pink hair, big knee community. It doesn't matter what the community is. They're terrified of being called an ism, a phobe. But anyone normal, anybody white, British, English, straight, different rules apply to them. And it's so obvious and it's so clear cut now that no one can deny this to be true now.
Mm.
Yeah. Gamism.
Yeah.
Gamism.
Yeah. I'm a gammon.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. But it isn't. I keep saying that interesting. It's not interesting, but it's strange how all of a sudden there's been multiple instances. Now I'm gonna, because we spoke about this just off camera. This is one, and I'm gonna bring this one up first just because it's closer to you. But you've got this yesterday. What's going on? A mosque in Manchester. So what's going on there? What's happening there? Why are people gathering outside this mosque?
So I'm not too sure. I've not seen that clip before. So what happened yesterday in Manchester, I believe, was in Newton Heath.
Yeah, I think
okay.
I think this clip was in Newton Heath.
Right.
So there was 3 lads, and they had to be escorted in by the police. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said mosque. I don't mean mosque. Hotel.
Hotel.
It was a migrant hotel.
Right. When you said mosque, then you completely threw me. I thought it was a different story. Right. Yeah. So there is, I believe I forget the name of the hotel. There's a hotel in Newton Heath, and Newton Heath is where the headquarters of Greater Manchester Police are. They've got 2 huge buildings across the road from this. So this is right next door to the police. Hotel being used by migrants. People now, I mean, the lid's off the can now. So we're going to have a lot more of these demonstrations and problems. But people gathered outside this migrant hotel to demonstrate that they don't want migrants in the country anymore, and especially illegal migrants. And why are we funding all this? Yeah. When they can't get school places, where things are being cut, where the jobs are being undercut, and people have had enough. And it's not just about migrants. It's about our country's failing.
Yeah.
But the migrants is a visual part of that problem. Yeah, it's a correct part, but it's visual. So they went there to demonstrate. Police turned up, riot gear. It got all over social media. More people turned up. Of course, there was violence. I believe a bus was set on fire. It turned into what we expected it to turn into, because part of it was poorly policed, and part of it is people have been keeping their mouths shut for decades, and finally the Stockport incident have made people go, no more. We kept quiet when 100,000 of our children were being gang raped over a decade. We kept quiet when our wages were being suppressed for decades because of mass immigration. We kept quiet that we can't afford to rent a house or buy a house because 10 million people have come into the country in a decade. We kept quiet in Manchester when 22 children were blown up by a nutcase 7 years ago. We just sang Don't Look Back in Anger. We kept quiet, but we finally had enough. And those kids being stabbed in Southport was the final straw. And I think we're in for years and years of this now.
I think exactly the same, and I'm glad that's exactly what I thought that you were going to say when I showed you that, because that hotel would have been there for some time, probably occupied for some time. So for a protest to all of a sudden start, it is because of that. And we've seen it in London on the weekend. We saw what these marches were like, and we saw how they fizzled out a little bit, and people just started. They were fed up of getting beaten down. And then you watch the one on June the 1st. It was massive, 30-odd thousand. And then this one that's just gone this weekend previous, looking like close to 100,000 people. And that growth is because people have had enough. That is it. I think people now, including myself, I've been at this point for some time. But this is it now. Has to stop. Otherwise, we're in for some serious trouble.
I'm getting a bit recognised knocking about in Wales, and somebody stopped me the other day and said, "Are you Stan?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've got a story for you." He said, "I've just been told by my dentist, I go privately to a dentist, and they've had to give up 1 day a week for migrants. They can't see anybody else on that day. It's and this is a private dentistry. So, and it's in Gowerton, and it's so from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. And then this, and they've just had their first coach full of migrants. They all come down in a bus, and they've all got Aspin cards and ID cards. And all of them, without exception, they're all men. All of them, without exception, had the date of birth on the card.
This is Gowerton, Swansea.
This is Gowerton, Swansea. All of them on the bus. Sorry, all of them had the cards, and they ranged between 17, 18, and 19 years of age.
Yeah.
they started to examine the mouths, and every one of those people, now I couldn't get how many the figures were, but every one of those people that arrived on a minibus were a minimum of 25 to 30 years of age. That's what, and teeth don't lie.
Yeah.
The person owning the teeth lie, but the teeth don't lie. Now, why are we not doing a DNA test as they come in, and a dental test? And if they lie on their application, they just go straight home. They don't touch go. But yet, the Labour government now look as though they're going to rubber stamp every single person to just allow them in, and then at the end of the 12 months, they can claim we've got no backlog.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what they're going to do. And we don't need DNA tests or dental tests for migrants because that's far too complicated. All we need to do is go, no, you're not coming in, and you're being deported the same day. That's how you solve that problem, not by trying to create more complicated reasons not to let them come in. You'll say, none of you are coming in. We've had enough. We're full. That's it. I mean, let's be honest about that dentist practice. They've not been forced to do this by the government. They've just been offered a shitload of money. Yeah. So the owners of the dentist company has went, no, we'll knock down 1 day a week because the government are going to pay us a fortune. So that's why. And that's why this is increasing. To begin with, it was lefty do-gooders. We feel sorry for everybody. Let them all come here. Group hug, sing Kumbaya. But then about a decade ago, 15 years ago, businesses started getting involved and going, we can make a fortune out of this. Yeah. The security companies, the hotel chains, private doctors, dentists, transport companies, all these people are going, we're making a fortune. So they're all promoting this. They're all making donations to MPs with support of this. This isn't now a left-wing pink and fluffy policy. It's a capitalist policy as well, but it is actually a Ponzi scheme, because if it carries on, the whole stack of cards is going to come tumbling down on everybody because it's not sustainable. You can make a fast buck today, but the country will fail in a decade or two from now.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, what I'm saying, Nick, is now that they're here, you go through every one of them with their fake dates of birth and explain how your teeth are older than your
actually, I'm with Nick. I go for every single one of them and say, you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave. There's a bus outside. So long, or goodbye. And that is, I don't think there can be any messing around anymore. That is literally what needs to happen. The hotels need to be shut. The people need to be put onto buses. And Cardiff Airport could do with some bloody business. Yeah. Cardiff Airport is the biggest failure, for the Welsh government. But, you can finally use it. I'm sure they'd get a lot of money coming from central government to get them out through Cardiff Airport. Yeah. But I don't know. I've just gone back to this comment. Let me bring it back up. 2 seconds. There it is. So just watch Kia's live, labelling all the trouble at far-right activists and racists, pacifying Muslims for the safety. I was expecting a new legislation against knife crime. So what it looks like is he went on and talked about the far right and the problems with the far right, which is disappointing, because I thought potentially after what we've just seen, he is going to try and appease people and say, look, we hear you, like they do. We're not going to do anything about it, but we hear you. We understand. We are going to sort it. That's at least what I thought I was going to hear. No, because he's at the end of the day, he's a Marxist with a smile. Exactly. And the same with Romeo, the permanent secretary of Ministry of Justice. She's a Marxist, as is Yvette Cooper. They're all. How can you suddenly say we've got to tackle knife crime? It's not the knife crime that's doing it. It's culture, and it's culture wars, and it's where this culture of bringing knives has come from. Yeah. And they know all that. These people are not stupid. Sometimes it's easier to think that they're idiots and don't know what they're doing. If we don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, it just means we're stupid. As in, there's a reason for it. We just don't understand the reason. The reason why they blamed it all on knife crime is because it's convenient. And because they know they can say to the whole general public, who already know we have a knife crime epidemic, and we just go, that's knife crime, and we're going to tackle knife crime. So the average person on the street goes, oh,
it's all being tackled now. I can just go back into my house and not worry anymore.
Yeah.
These are just platitudes to say to the general public to hopefully calm them down.
Now, something else, Nick. Sorry to just interrupt. Something else. When it was announced at Southport that this 17-year-old boy who can't be named for legal reasons,
he's been named,
who lives in this is when it first came out.
Right.
Who lives in Lancashire, Banks, Lancashire. They said he had mental health issues. He was known to the mental health services and security services. Now, he's obviously now been charged, so he can't have had mental health because he would have been unfit to plead, wouldn't he? Is that right or not?
No. So mental health issues is a sliding scale. So even if you're at the top of that scale, you can still be charged with a crime. You just might end up going to court and being found not guilty under diminished responsibilities. So you'll still be charged with a crime even if you're a lunatic.
Right.
Yeah.
This question, I've seen it pop up twice, so I think we should get it out. Why were the people randomly nicked in London yesterday and the people in Leeds were not? Two-tier policing is a far-right conspiracy theory. Now, on that, I do just want to play this one video. Let me just find this one. Is it that one? No, not that one. Bear with me. I'll find it now. There you go. Let me put this video on, and because then we'll discuss it. Let's have a look. Okay, there. So, and there was multiple videos of that happening yesterday. Section 35 dispersal. Why aren't they doing this in Leeds? Why aren't they doing this with the Palestine marches that we're seeing in on that bloody street? Why are we not? Why are we seeing different justice being served for people depending on their political or their cause? Why are we seeing this?
That's because we have a two-tier policing system in this country. And the first time I really noticed it was Black Lives Matter and the COVID marches 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. And it's become plainly obvious since then. And we've got example after example after example. And the reason why we have that is because the police have been infected with the woke virus. As in, we've got to police different communities differently. This was going on 20 years ago when I worked with Greater Manchester Police. I could give you some examples but these were low-level examples 20 years ago. It's ramped up now. Yeah. So we've got to go in soft if it's a minority group. We look at the Free Palestine marches, look at Just Stop Oil, look at all these other demonstrations, the Roma community in Leeds. Mm-hmm. You look at all those things and you think, where's the policing? Where's the robust policing there? And there isn't any. But then when it's a white, usually English, straight, male protest, the police have already riot gear on. They've already got the batons out. They're already arresting people. They're kettling people. They're whacking people with batons. And that would be okay if they did it to everybody on every protest. But when you just see it on those protests, you see how unfair it is. And the reason why they do it is because in our country now, anything that goes against the status quo is far right. Yeah. And the status quo has gone so far left in the last 10, 20 years that anything now of the right of Jeremy Corbyn is far left. And far left just means an average British person now is far right. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely crazy. And the mistake they've made over decades, and they've not realised they made a mistake because they actually believed it. They actually thought we were weak. They actually thought the British people were weak, but they misunderstood. They misunderstood our tolerance for weakness and cowardice. But we're a very tolerant nation. So we've put up with so much. We've put up with being treated unfairly. We've put up with politicians lying and corruption. We've put up with the BBC full of paedophiles. We've put up with all these things, but everyone has a breaking point, and Southport was the breaking point.
Yeah.
And now that tolerance has ended now, because I've been looking at this for years going, I've been saying for 2 years now, the next atrocity will end in violence. And I just don't know when the next atrocity was. I think it was Southport. And we see it all over Europe, the violence. We see it in Southern Ireland. They've had enough. But I didn't know what was going to cause ours. And it's happened now. And that lid going back on the tin, no chance. This is going to continue. And I don't think this government will ever listen. So we've got years of this. If we're lucky, the next government in 3, 4, 5 years may listen. But this government will never listen to the white English man or woman.
Yeah, correct. And we saw what happened when Keir Starmer went for his photo opportunity at the place where those poor children died. And he was heckled from the crowd. And some people were saying, and I thought the cheek of it, some people were saying, on Twitter, obviously, you shouldn't be doing that then. No, this community has just had their children attacked, murdered, friends and family as well. And Keir Starmer didn't even address the people. He didn't speak to them. He did that. He heard what they had to say and he just walked away. Now, to me, that is a message that speaks 1,000 words, because what he said there is, I'm here to get my flowers, get the photos. I don't give a stuff what you think, and I'm gone. I just want to say as well, Kath saying here, because they were ready yesterday and not in Leeds. London is ready all the time, unfortunately. The police are always ready to go in London, aren't they? It's just depending on what clothes they wear at the time. I think the thing with Leeds is that the police were ready for that as well, because they were going in to take 5 children. Or I believe it was 5 children, or there was definitely a number of children. So into that community. So they would have known that there's going to be a bit of a kick-off in Leeds, but it was the choice that was made in how they policed the situation, which was retreat. Simply, if they wanted to, they could have called in forces from all over the north to go and support, couldn't they? But they didn't. They just left them to it.
Let's go back to Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer was told to go there and lay flowers by his PR people. And rightly, he would have been criticised if he didn't turn up. I'm glad he went. He should turn up. He's the Prime Minister. But it was the way he turned up. It looked like a PR stunt. Absolutely. The way him, the Chief Constable, and the Police Crime Commissioner all marched up the road with solemn faces, clutching wreaths, all the camera angles, all low. It was like, this is a setup. And then when he got heckled, he left. What he should have done was he should have walked to it, not marching or not with anybody else, with his security, obviously. Yeah. He should have put his flowers down. He should have engaged the crowd. He should have said to people, I know this is bad. I know I'm to blame because I'm Prime Minister and I'm going to try to do more on this. I feel your pain. I'm ashamed this has happened. And people like me and people who've been in my seat in Parliament are really to blame for this. And I get it. And I'm sorry. And people could have shouted at him and abused him. And he should have stood there and took it and went, I know. And I'm ashamed, and I will do better because of this, because we need to live in a better country. And I feel you. That's how he should have handled it. Yeah. But he went, dropped his flower, smiled at the camera, bit of abuse, ran away. It was absolutely. But he's not a people person, is he?
No, he's not. And the frustrating thing is, I really do not like Keir Starmer. I'm not ever going to be the first person to rush to his defence. But if he had done what you had just said, I would have sat there and thought, fair play to him. Good. That's what needed to be done. You needed to be he's the Prime Minister. There needed to be he needed to be a sounding board for these people directly affected from what's happened as the Prime Minister. And he just showed this complete. How much he just does not care about those people.
Yeah, I disagree with the pair of you, actually, because if you think about Aberfan, which is probably the worst disaster in Wales, it was Her Majesty the Queen that came along. Yeah. And it should have been the King that turned up in Southport, and also gone to the hospital. But if it wasn't him, and it was the Prime Minister, he should have actually gone to the hospital to see the kids with parents, and then gone to lay wreaths, and then engaged in the crowd. But because he was, and you're right, Nick, because he wanted to get the photo op, and he thought, oh, nobody will dare shout at me, and I'll look good.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, he bears the responsibility. And I won't have these leftards saying, oh, he's only been in office a few weeks. That man voted 139 times against any measures to tighten up immigration.
Yeah.
109 times. And in fact, I'm not specifically talking about Southport, but I am going to write a piece on the second generation jihadis who haven't integrated, who haven't.
There's a lot of reports to show how the second generation are actually worse.
Who haven't soaked in Britishness. Yeah. They want their cake and eat it. And it's no good. It's no good for us. It's no good for our children, and it's no good for our security. We've now been living on a war footing for 20 years, Nick.
Yeah, all right, let's go back to the King. You raise a good point now. I've actually not thought of that. Where's the money? So the Prime Minister should have gone, because the Prime Minister is ultimately responsible. He's a politician. He's been in Parliament for years. He's been the leader of opposition for years, and he's now in charge. The venting should be at him because he represents the government. He is the government. So the venting should be at him. The monarch is there for bringing people together. So the monarch, our king, should have been to the hospital. I forgot all about this. You're perfectly right. The king should be visiting people in hospital going, this is awful. I'm so sorry. You're one of my subjects. You know, you're all my children. And that's what we need the monarch to do. I can't believe I've not thought of that. So, even King Charles should be doing something with this. But again, he's scared stiff, and his advisors are scared stiff. Do we want to get involved? It's a migrant stabbing people. We're going to, are we going to be called racist? Why didn't we go to another bed in a hospital? But I'm sick of people playing politics. Just do what needs to be done. And if that ruins your career, so be it, because your job is to improve our lives and improve the country. And if that means sacrificing your career, well, that's what you need to do as a patriot to improve all our lives.
See, the thing is, if the monarch had have gone, it wouldn't have been a quick. In fact, Keir Starmer might as well have got out of the car and gone like that. And whisked it to the place where they laid it. But His Majesty would have actually engaged in the crowd and would have delayed any other appointments going until he'd seen everybody. And that's the great thing about having a monarchy. They are apolitical, or supposed to be. But I take your point. On this issue, he might not be. Yeah,
well, exactly. Yeah. So I think obviously we've got that now, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens if there are any changes made, and if the changes that are going to be made are just ones that are going to affect us, because that's what tends to happen. Is there's something awful happening. I know the David Amos stabbing, and the first thing they wanted to do was control social media. Which again, it's to control the reaction, and we've heard from the police that is one of their priorities is controlling the reaction to what has happened in Southport.
The David Amos decapitation, assassination.
Yeah.
I think it's gone beyond all that now. So you're right. The government now will try to clamp down on social media, which is an impossible ask. They will try to clamp down on so-called far-right groups, and I'm sure some exist, so I'm sure they'll highlight some now and ban them, and put them on a terrorist watch list and go after the leaders. But they would have had nothing to do with what's gone on in any disturbances across the country. But it's something the government can say we've done. And this now reminds me of Star Wars. There's a line in Star Wars when Princess Leia says to Darth Vader, something along the lines of, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. And that's exactly what's going to happen now. They're going to tighten their grip. And by doing that, more and more patriots and decent people in this country will slip through their fingers and find themselves against the government, against the state. I don't think there's any going back now. I think the worm has turned. If the government had any sense, they'd be working out, how do we control this? How do we implement this change on our terms? That's the best they can do now. As change is coming, how can we do it on our terms? Yeah. But they're not. They're going to double down, and they're going to go, we need to clamp down on all these white racists. Yeah. That's exactly what they're going to do.
And what's going to happen around you, Nick, particularly in Manchester, Greater Manchester, when you get your allocation of houses that you've got to build because the government, Angela Rayner, dictates it, and people on the waiting list aren't going to be moved into them, then you are going to get a rebellion in this country.
I don't think that matters one bit or the other in Greater Manchester. I think that's now so low down on people's lists. Put it this way: in Manchester at the moment, at the last census, 2011, was it 11? No, it was 21. 2021. Yeah. In my home city of Manchester, a third of all residents were not even born in the UK. So you think people are not going to be minded about new houses being given to immigrants because it's been happening all their lives.
Yeah. And, a third, that's almost to the point where it's over half, or, approaching half.
33%.
So, that's, and over time now again, in the next census, I wonder what that percentage is going to be then.
So what's the overall statistic of ethnics in Manchester then?
It's over 50%. So white British or white English are now a minority in Manchester.
I did not know that.
I didn't.
Yeah, so white English are a minority in Manchester, Birmingham and London. That came out of there. They're the three places from the 2021 census.
Good Lord, I didn't know that. See, you've shocked me into silence, Nick.
Well, I must have taken some doing. But you've got then, obviously, now the other thing I want to see is Southend. It's just a piece of footage.
Well, just before that, do you remember the black and white films and in fact the cotton mills of Lancashire when they welcomed Gandhi, and all the thousands of footage there. The thousands of people, all white. The only person that wasn't white was Gandhi himself and his little entourage. And I can't picture that some 50 years later, that's gone and they're a minority. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
it is shocking. Steph's saying there, well, that is shocking, and it is. But that I know we got to be careful how we say it, but the great it seems to be that another Kafara conspiracy theory, but when you're looking at the data, that exactly is what seems to be happening, and that will lead us on perfectly to this video, because this going on, this is in Southend, just so people
welcome to Southend. Welcome to Southend.
So, there you go.
Oh my God.
So, there was sword fighting at the same time, 3 or 4 of them with machetes, and then you had that. I don't know what is going on there, but that doesn't look like the UK at all, does it?
No, again, Southend, I've been there. Teddy Taylor's old constituency, and it was white. I cannot. This is shocking.
The video about that was basically 4 young black men, all 4 of them with machetes. Police officers stood there watching because there was nothing the police could do.
No.
And they've got machetes and they're running after each other, chasing each other around, slashing each other on the back, trying to kill each other. And in the background is the fairgrounds. You can hear the music. And Southend is like Southport. It's a holiday place.
Yeah.
We've now imported the culture of the Congo.
Yes.
We've got young black men with machetes trying to kill each other. This is the Congo. This is what happened in Rwanda. And we've imported it into this country. Absolutely disgraceful and it's even, it's not shocking because that's just too low level. It's unbelievable. And the police are stood there going, well, what can we do? Because I've got a little baton. They've all got machetes. They're trying to kill each other. I don't want to get hit by a machete. And we've allowed this. This hasn't happened overnight. This is decade after decade of mass immigration, no integration, no assimilation, telling people the second they get off the boat or get off the plane, welcome here, just to let you know, your culture is just as good as our culture. So please keep all your cultural traits because we think they're amazing. Welcome to the UK and start breeding. Thank you very much. And that's what they told when they get off the boat and the plane. And we wonder why none of them are integrating into the country, because we've never told them to do it. We've never helped them to do it. And we've never expected them to do it. And now they're running wild. Not only are they killing each other and have been for decades, they're now going into play groups and stabbing children to death. And we've brought all this upon ourselves.
Yes, absolutely correct. And, you know, it is symbolic as well, the fact that they go after children. It is, you know, and it's an attack on the future. That's what it's, you know, seen as. Now, it has come out today. The boy has been named, so I'll bring this up on screen here. So boy charged with Southport murders named in court. Luckily, he's turning 18 in a couple of days. Yeah. So that is lucky that because we could have never known who this person was. But a 17-year-old boy who was charged with the murders of 3 girls killed in a knife attack at a Taylor Swift themed dance class in Southport has been named as Axel Rubakana. What's that? Rudakabana. Well, it's definitely not a Cardiff name, is it? No. And that's the point, because what was being reported is this boy was he was Cardiff, and okay, maybe born in Cardiff, but absolutely not from Cardiff.
I don't know why you've not thrown our report up, because he's actually of Rwandan parentage, and he's got a brother that lives in Cardiff now.
Yes, yeah. And he appeared at a hearing in Crown Court on Thursday with a recorder of Liverpool judge Andrew Mary, KFC Borough, whatever. So, you know, unfortunately, these are the 3 children. And I did have a picture of him there. I don't think it's got a picture of him there, but I've got this here. So I'm just going to play this. So this was him not so long ago. And the next thing is what's concerning is the message that comes up. And obviously these are unverified, but they are being shared quite widely on social media. So Axel was expelled for carrying a knife. He was in my class and told us that we needed a genocide like they had in Rwanda to fix the problems. Police knew, I can't see what that says, and he was known to social services. So, you know, in that instant, you got his details there. So in this instance, he would have been known to, if he was known to the police, known to social services, he would have been known to the special services, for example, counter-terrorism. So how was it able to happen? You know, how can this guy be known for being a risk to doing this, making threats regarding genocide, and still be able to commit these acts? Where do these failings lay?
The answer to that is simple, and that's because there's something like 20 to 30,000 people on the terrorist watch list in this country. They cannot all be looked at. They cannot all be investigated. And we're making our job harder for ourselves. What we need to do is we need to look at these 20 to 30,000 people and we say, who wasn't born in the UK? Right, they're all deported tomorrow. We need a new law that says MI5 can deport anybody who wasn't born in this country with no evidence. So let's deport them. The problem's gone then. And then maybe we can look at the people who were born here and look at them as terrorists. So there's just too many people to look at.
Yeah.
And go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think your figures are slightly out. There's 45,000 known jihadis in this country.
So even more then, even more.
Even more. And
that's just the official figures.
And that was 3 years ago.
Oh.
So we're out there, but 45,000. And you're right, there's only 5,000 in MI5. And to do a round the clock watch on somebody, you need about 45 officers for 7 days a week.
So ultimately, it's unmanageable and it's a known risk to public safety.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that would give anybody the authorization to say, right, we've got a serious risk to our children here, and this is what needs to happen. And what you said, anybody not born here, they're leaving tomorrow. And I think there is massive, there's so much justification for that.
Absolutely.
That wouldn't receive any pushback whatsoever.
Except from the left.
Well, we got to just not listen to them ever again, I think,
I think there's also a good case to be made now that we deport his parents.
Yeah.
There's a good case to be made that we say to them, we don't blame you directly, but we allowed you in our country and we treated you like a British citizen, and your son has committed a horrendous crime. You're now being deported because we don't want you here, because you was only ever a guest in this country, and as the host, we're now asking you to leave. That would send a signal through the whole immigrant community in the UK that I need to raise my children better. I need to make sure my children aren't jihadists. I need to make sure my children aren't violent criminals, because I've got skin in the game now. Because if my child does something horrendous, they're going to deport me, just as they're going to deport my child. At the moment, there's nothing's going to happen to his parents. And I don't blame them per se, but they're not British. So therefore, part of me, I don't care.
Yeah,
and we don't know what the parents are like. We don't know what the parents, what their background is, why they came here, what wars they've been involved in themselves.
They fled Rwanda.
Yeah, well, they might have, but so did many other people who were involved in it.
Yeah.
So, who knows what their background is? So they could be just as radical.
But the same, I agree with you, Nick. Amjam Chowdhury has got a massive house. That now should be sold off. It should be sold off, and that money put back in the state. His family should all be deported, all of them gone, because they never once helped the police. And so they're a risk as well.
We need to be careful if we're talking about British citizens. So he was born here, so he's a British citizen, because the last thing you want is when you're arrested, the police then can confiscate your house, because believe me, a year from now, the Welsh police will be confiscating your house because they're deeming you a terrorist.
Yeah,
so we just need to be careful we don't go down a slippery slope. But for people we deem are not British citizens, then I'm quite happy making mistakes on them, because they're not British citizens. But we need to protect the rights of British citizens.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think the last thing I'm going to share is this picture. So this was a courtroom sketch of him in court. Obviously, looks a little bit different compared to his school photos. Obviously, they would have been over a year ago now. And apparently, we've seen comments and reports saying that he was smirking in court, didn't show his face, covered his face, only showed his eyes all the way through. So this is him. This is the man.
Yep.
The boy.
Yeah, I think we need a national discussion now about the death penalty.
Yeah,
I've been always wanting the death penalty, and the people who don't always say, "Oh, we end up killing innocent people." Well, not anymore. The technology we have now can make things 100%, such as those two jihadi nutcases who chopped up the Lee Rigby in London. 30 people filmed that on their phones. There's 30 pieces of evidence. They admitted they did it. The police witnessed them do it, and they had blood all over them. That's a slam dunk case. Execute him. Same with this guy here now. It looks like a clear-cut case. There'll be DNA evidence. He'll admit he's done it. There's so many witnesses. He needs to be executed for many reasons. The first thing is, it's the most humane thing for him, because we're going to lock him away now forever. That's mental torture. And I don't want to torture this man. I just want him gone. So let's execute him. He's going to be in a high secure prison. That's going to be at least £80,000 a year for the rest of his life. It's going to cost us millions. So We need a conversation about the death penalty back into the UK, a new version of it fit for the 21st century.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's something that I've thought, it's quite hard, it's quite difficult. If it's you won't be bringing back a death penalty for someone who keeps on getting in a fight. It'd be for things like people who have murdered children, people who have raped children, people who have slaughtered a family, things like that, where, now you just can't escape it. There's so much evidence, there's so much DNA, there's so much technology that if they can say, and they know 100%, then the world is a better place without them in all reasons. Financially, for the UK, they don't have to house them.
No.
As much as, I may be a little bit different, I think the thought of them sitting in a hole for the rest of their life may be something that is worth it. But the £80,000 a year, absolutely not.
No.
So that is a discussion that needs to be had. And again, it's another thing I'm seeing popping up a lot on social media. But I know there was something you've launched a campaign yourself, Nick, haven't you?
Yes, today. Yep. So it's I'll send you the link if you could put it in the description of this video. That'd be great. So it's on GoFundMe. If you just search for my name, Nick Buckley, it'll come up. And I'm raising money for injured police officers. And people are saying to me, "But why, Nick? They're the enemy. They're kettling us. They're part of the two-tier policing system." And to a certain extent, you're right. But they're doing as they're told. It's the senior police officers who are to blame. They're the donkeys. It's the politicians meddling in policing. The frontline police officers are with us. The frontline police officers don't want any of this nonsense happening, but they're following the orders. And I know that's no excuse. I'm not trying to reference Nazi Germany, but we can't make the police our enemies. We can't. We need to bring them on board. And every officer who's injured, I feel for them, because I've trained police officers in the past. I spent years based in police stations. Those police officers on the front line are not our enemies. They're the tool of our enemies. Yeah. We need to make sure we're directing our anger at our enemies, not the officers who on a normal day are keeping us safe, patrolling the streets, dealing with violent criminals, and have been injured every single day. So we're going down a path where we're demonising frontline police officers, and we've all got to be careful because they're on our side. They work for us. We pay their wages. We need to get them back on our side, and we don't do it by attacking them and injuring them. Hence why I want to raise some money for a charity that works with injured police officers, because they're our foot soldiers. They're just being used by our enemies at the moment, but they belong to us, and we need to make sure they know that we're on their side.
And I think, we've tried appealing many times, haven't we, to the police. We speak to the police, serving police. Some of them speak to us in confidence, and retired cops as well. So my only issue is what we're seeing in things like London. There seems to be more the younger generation of police that we're seeing now, the 2-year sergeants, that are there because, you've got to tick boxes and things like that. They seem to be really enjoying punching hell out of people. Last night, for example, on Whitehall, I've seen numerous videos of them going in. There's one guy, I deleted the link. I can't find it again if we need to. Arms behind his back, surrounded by cops, and there's one cop just punching him 3 or 4 times in the face, kneeing him in the stomach. So they don't do themselves any favors when you've got wrong uns in the ranks, do they?
And actually, that lady, the 73-year-old, with a heart pacemaker, she was walking away slowly, but she wasn't going fast enough for the police. And when she explained to them, "I've got a pacemaker," they'd already handcuffed her. Ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. I'm no supporter of our policing in the UK. It's not fit for purpose. It absolutely isn't. I constructively criticise the police all the time. And I'm someone who's trained police officers, so I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's a difference between that and wanting individual frontline officers to be hurt and injured. Now, our biggest tool is social media. So when we're showing the police doing things they shouldn't be doing or overreacting, that's how we change the police. That's how we embarrass their leaders and politicians. But if we're also being violent, all our complaints are dismissed because officers will say, "It was a violent crowd, what else could I do?" So we just keep falling for the trap of being violent so they can dismiss us as violent Nazi far-right thugs. If we weren't violent and they're then committing violence against us, like Gandhi, then shame and public humiliation, and the other members of the public will look at it and go, they're out of order. How can you baton people sat down peacefully protesting? That's how we win this battle. We don't win this battle by taking on the establishment of violence, because we can never win that fight.
Yeah, you know, and for us to be in a position to actually win, I'm talking completely hypothetical now, we'd need to have double the number of registered British military that would be willing to stand up and actually fight. And the numbers are not anywhere near that at the moment, are they?
Well, people keep saying we want the army on the streets. Have you seen our British army? They're just like the police. They're just as woke, they're just as pathetic, they're just as ill-trained. There's too many women, there's too many box tickers. Our army is not what it used to be 30, 40 years ago. We can put the army on the streets, they're just as bad as the police. Except they've got bigger guns.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. That's why, you know, I think you're right where it's going to be, you know, violence isn't going to win at the moment. You know, it's simply not. There's not enough people there. All that's going to happen is people are going to get mopped up. They're going to do some serious time, and then you've got a lot less people that they need to worry about, and then they can start pushing more control on you.
How did Black Lives Matter create a movement across the globe? It's because they managed to capture on social media 30 seconds of a man trying to breathe and dying, and they changed the world. All we need is enough social media clips of the police acting the way they shouldn't, and change will come. That's how we beat our enemy, is with social media. But we can't do it if we're also violent thugs.
But I have to sort of couch this, Nick, because last night it was definitely a police tactic to kettle protesters in and then force them to react. They were already battened up and shielded up and one thing or another, and then they started to go in and pick out people that they thought were the ringleaders, you know, and that's how they break up a peaceful demonstration. You've seen it across the globe, you know, particularly in America and the black rights issues, where peaceful protesters were goaded into doing something.
And that will always happen. That will always be a threat. But out of London yesterday came two good little videos. The first one was that 73-year-old woman. No one can watch that and not be ashamed of the British police. And what are we? And again, she's a 73-year-old white woman. If she was a 73-year-old Asian woman in a burqa, oh Jesus, the world would have changed yesterday if that was the case. And the other video that came out was the GB News reporter Martin Daubney being arrested for trying to report on it in a suit and a shirt and tie, being jumped on and handcuffed until someone said to the police, "He's a reporter, so let him go." This isn't one clip that might change everything, but we just need to use social media in the right way, and all this will build. And the more people see this, the more average citizens will come on our side. But it's going to be a slow process. It's going to be at least 3-4 years, because Labour are going nowhere. And it's about building that evidence up and changing people so many hundred at a time, and showing that the establishment are corrupt and ruthless and are out of order and are not on our side, and that takes time. You know, you're absolutely right, and I think, you know, more people now are venturing onto social media. I think the truth is inescapable now for a lot of people. We're seeing these clips are, you know, all of them are just going viral, and the comments and the shares. So I think you're absolutely right, because when they realise that, well, hang on, we can't get away with this anymore, then there has to be a change in mentality, doesn't it?
It's if they realise, because of course you've rang up banks or you've rang up companies, and you ring and 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 ring, and they've got the phone on silent, you know, and so we could be in our own little Twitter sphere thinking that we're getting at them by copying them in, and they don't read it.
Straight into the bin.
And it doesn't matter if they read it, because they're not going to agree with us anyway. It's not about engaging the police and the politicians. It's about engaging the general public.
Yeah.
The general public have the one thing all politicians are scared of, and it's called a vote. And if we can get more and more people on our side, on the side of freedom and personal responsibility and a smaller state and less police interference, politicians will be terrified, because we will end up electing people who will implement what we want. So it's not about changing those organisations directly. Public pressure and politicians will change those organisations when we've made them afraid enough that we're not going to vote for them anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely right. Well, Nick, it's been absolutely pleasure having you on. Again, sorry for all the messing around to get you on, but you know, it's always great having you on the show and getting your opinions on stuff. And we'll absolutely have to catch up again soon.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll have to make it a regular thing, this, because it's you know, us Northerners have to stick together.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. It's ganging up on the Southerner. Nick, thanks a lot for your time today, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.